Okay, tonight we're going to work on learning about the 1950 census especially, but we're going to talk about the new feature at FamilySearch called Get Involved and the 1950 census. And it's been an exciting weekend coming into this as they started that program, but you might wonder why FamilySearch and these other companies are going to something different now. And it's partly because the situation with indexing is that our boat is sinking. It's being totally deluged with millions and millions of unindexed records, and the records are piling up week after week after week, and we're never going to be able to dig our way out. It's just like a boat that's spraying a leak, and you've got a little tiny bucket to drain it with. And we're basically sinking in all of our records. There's literally there's years of indexing backed up right now. And so we need to come up with some revolutionary ideas, new ways to do things. And so FamilySearch rolled out this new repurposing of the old index page, and we've called it Get Involved. It doesn't mean indexing is being replaced, but it means that there are other things now that are being introduced here that are going to tremendously improve the speed of the indexing program in the church. And so what it specifically is new is that FamilySearch has developed a new program, and they call it Handwriting Recognition AI, AI meaning artificial intelligence. And they're using this to index written records, not typed records, as they have OCR for that, but for handwritten records in the various languages, they've developed a program that can actually read them and verify them. And so it's going to be our job to verify what the machines say the records say. Instead of us having to start from scratch, we're going to have pre-indexed records or pre-transcribed records. And what we'll be doing is not doing the transcription from scratch, but just verifying what the machine does, which speeds things up tremendously. And it's good news and bad news. Is this artificial intelligence is wonderful. It can do thousands of pages a day of records. The bad side to it is it's not perfect, and it still needs you and I to do verification because there are mistakes there. And so it's a good news, bad news kind of situation, but it really speeds things up. I noticed this first a few weeks ago when I've been looking at the weekly reports from FamilySearch of how many new names are released by country for being viewed by names, where you can search them by names. And for the country of Brazil, they went from hundreds of thousands of names a week to 4 to 7 million names every week that are being uploaded and made available to search by name. And I thought, how are they getting so much? And I asked one of the employee managers, and they said, well, they're using this Get Involved. And because they're using Get Involved with pre-indexed records, they're able to do millions of these in a week instead of a few 100,000 using the old indexing system. And so with this improvement, hopefully we'll be able to rescue our sinking boat. So does this mean we're ending indexing? No. I do think what you're going to find, though, is there will always be a need for indexing the way it's always been for some records, records that just won't fit being read by a machine. But I do think you're going to find over time that more and more records will have this artificial intelligence reading them and then us reviewing them, and less true indexing. And for right now, the indexing statistics are still there for you, and you can still do regular indexing. When you use the artificial intelligence way, when you're doing the to review, you're going to find that those numbers are going to be kept separate for right now. Ultimately, they're going to be all merged together, or they'll be all put together in the same report. But for right now, they're kept independent of each other. Okay, so what are the advantages of using Get Involved? Well, one of them is, and this is something you can't do with indexing, you're going to be allowed to kind of pick who and where you want to help at. You're going to be able to pick a place or a name and go there. So that's a big advantage. The second advantage is, of course, the fact that it's already been pre-indexed for you. It's been pre-transcribed. So what you're doing is looking at the transcription already, and all you're doing is verifying it. The third thing, and I think this is wonderful, this will be, I think, the key to bringing more people into the program. This is a far superior way to get somebody started with indexing because it's much easier. They've already got the helps and the suggestions. They now don't have to do things from scratch. And I think they'll find that to be a big advantage. And then also, it's a very short and quick activity. They'll give you names when you're doing names in batches of 20, and you can usually do 20 in 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't take very long at all. And the fact is, after every name you do, and you say, accept it, it will then automatically be recorded so that you can stop anywhere. You can do one name and quit, and you'll get credit for that name. It's not like indexing where you got to come back and you got to finish that batch. And if you don't finish that batch, you don't get credit for anything. This way, you could do 5 names and quit. You got credit for those 5 names. And so it's got a lot of positive things for it, especially for those that don't have a lot of time. Okay, so let's just take a look at reviewing names. That's the thing that was released first before the census came out. And so we'll just use that as our example of how we're going to get involved with review names. And so you find the place actually the easiest way to find this is you go up to the ribbon where it says Get Involved, and then click Get Involved on the home page. And that takes you to a page where it shows you indexing, and then down below it is the Get Involved part of the page, and there'll be review names there. And so you can click Get Started, and you'll get a screen like this to start. For Get Involved for reviewing names in general prior to census, they had these locations. You could do the United States and you could do Latin America. And so the language would be based on which country you pick. If you pick the United States, it'll be English. If you pick Latin American countries, depending on what their basic language is, it could be English, it could be Portuguese, or it could be Spanish. And then you can choose on some of the locations. After you pick the country, you can pick a state. Like if it was Mexico, you could pick a state in Mexico, or Brazil. In other countries, you can't do that. You just have the country. And you can also pick a last name. And they'll try to find you a document that has on it somewhere the last name you're looking for. And if they find it, you will get that. If not, you'll be taken to a page that just has other names on it. But after you've filled all that in, you click search, and up comes a document. And this is how it will look. And so what you have is the name that is being reviewed. The computer artificial intelligence says those 2 words and those blue boxes are a name. It translated them as Daniel Smith. So your job is to say, is that Daniel Smith up there? If it is, or isn't, you have 3 choices. You now have these options. You can say it's a match. If it's a match, you click match and it goes to the next name. If you don't like it and you think it's something else, or the spelling is wrong and you're supposed to use the spelling that's there, not what you think is correct spelling, then you may need to edit it. So you click edit, and then you take your mouse up in here and you click where you need to change something, and you make the changes and type it the right way, and then there'll be a submit button up there. Or you can just say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that is Daniel Smith up there. And that's perfectly okay. In fact, if you're not sure, please click that, because what'll happen is that name then will be reserved for somebody else to look at. So you don't have to make a decision. If you really aren't sure, just click unsure. Somebody else will get the privilege of doing that. There's really a fourth option over here, transcription error. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Okay, there are some other options up at the top of the screen. You can shrink or enlarge the image so you can see it better. Sometimes it's real small and you need to enlarge it. You can reset the view if you've changed a bunch of things and it's totally messed up now. You can just click that little circle with the little lines at the cardinal locations and it'll reset it. And then there's some toggle controls where you can control the brightness, the contrast. You can invert the colors so that you have white writing on a black background instead of the other way around. And you can also do some rotating, or if you've totally messed things up, you can click reset and it'll put it back the way it was supposed to be. And then last but not least is the fourth option when you're looking at the words that the computer says are a name and their translation. There is a place here for transcription errors. It automatically is set to not readable. Most of the time you're going to unclick that. If they're highlighting a blank area and telling you what it says, you just mark it blank. If you want to, you could describe the issue down here. Or if it's a name that was crossed out, you can highlight crossed out. Or you can click incomplete if it's not really a complete name or there's something about what was highlighted that isn't complete. Or the one that's most common in the census is not a name. We'll be showing you what you do with that later on. But you pick what it is that's wrong, and you can have more than one of these clicked, but most of the time, remember to unclick, they're not readable. And if you want to, fill this in and then click submit, and then it'll take you to the next name. And when you're finished with whatever size batch you were doing, this will come up on the screen. You can share it if you want. What they're doing is asking you to advertise. You can go to Facebook and share it to Facebook and say, hey, look what I did, or with family or whatever. You also can pick to continue how many names you want to receive. The basic batch is 20 names. You can make it 30 names, 50 names, or just leave it open and let me keep going until I want to quit. And then you tell them what you want to do, continue, and they'll give you whatever number you've highlighted here, or you can say maybe later and you've quit. The other way to quit is just hit the back arrow at the top of the page when you're out there doing names. And that automatically removes you from the program. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what happened this last weekend. On April 1st, the census was made available. The National Archives flipped a switch and made all their images available to the public. At the same time, they opened it up to genealogy companies like FamilySearch, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and so on. And so we have a partnership going with Ancestry. Ancestry took the images and they turned it loose with their artificial intelligence. And they have a certain schedule of states. They started with Oregon and Nevada, and they started going through the states one at a time, running them through artificial intelligence and getting this transcription. At the same time, FamilySearch was putting the images up on their site. MyHeritage was putting the images up on their site. And of course, Ancestry was putting them up on their site too. So there's 4 places at least right now that have the images for the census. Then FamilySearch, and I said later because they had a set schedule, but it didn't work. FamilySearch would take certain states and activate them. In other words, turn them on for review a few states at a time. And like I said, they started with Nevada and Oregon, and then Utah, then Arizona and Idaho, then New Mexico, and the last I saw earlier today was Florida. They're doing these a little bit at a time because they want us to do all the names. They're opening it up for name review. They want a separate name review because they right away, they want those names reviewed so they're as accurate as possible from the start. They'll also get reviewed again later when we do the whole sheets. So the first step is name review. The second step is for somebody to go through each page and do just the header at the top where it says the city, the county, and the town, you know, the state, I mean, and the enumeration district, and make sure those are labeled correctly. And then the last step is to go through what they call, actually it's not family review, it's household review. And you're going to review each household, household by household. We're not doing whole pages as such. We're doing it household by household. There's actually, if you have one of the people that have the extra questions, there's as many as 78 fields altogether that have to be transcribed because we're doing the entire census, everything that's recorded. Okay, the reviewing of families will be nice because you can do just anybody. You can just go in and say, give me somebody in Arizona, and you can do it. Or you can go find your family and do them. Or you can pick a surname and just do surnames, certain surname households. Or you can pick a location, like we could say Clovis, California, Fresno County, California, and just go through the pages for Clovis. And so there's a lot of ways to do it that's different from before. Then, when will they get these up on FamilySearch to be searched? They won't be put up on FamilySearch or Ancestry, because Ancestry will get them from us, until they've been through all three of these steps for the entire state. And after every page of the census for that state is finished, then the state will be published and available for transcription. But it'll take a while for all that to be done before they're put up. And then they'll be put up state by state as they're finished. I predict Utah will be the first state up. I can't imagine why, but I just have a feeling Utah will be the first one. So let's see how that works over here in the 1950 census. So we need to go to find the 1950 census. And so the easy way to do it at FamilySearch is sign in and click on Get Involved. And then on the ribbon for Get Involved, the far right thing on it is 1950 census. When you click on it, the page looks something like this. And this is what it looked like earlier today. And so you can click on any of these states that are here, except for Utah. Well, you can click on it, but Utah's finished. All the names in Utah have already been reviewed. So you could click on one of these other highlighted states, or you could go up where the box is and you could go look at the list and pick one. Like Arizona says it's 49% done. So I could either click there or I can just click on the map. And when you click on one of those, it'll take you to that state's Get Involved page. This one happens to be for Oregon, which at this point, when I took this image, was 1% done. And you have three possible things you can do. One of them is review names. Another one is to review those headers on each page, or review families. But you're going to notice the review names is highlighted. That one I can do. these are grayed out. They're going to stay grayed out until all the names have been reviewed in that state. You're not going to be able to move on to these other things until they all get reviewed. So right now, my only choice is to review names. So I click on that. And now I've got the Oregon Review Names page. And it's already set for Oregon. If I want to, I can put a last name in there. And then if I click search, if there is a page that has a Smith last name, it will take me to that page. It may take me straight to Smith's, or they may take me to some other name on the page, and below that name somewhere is Smith. But very often it takes you right to a family with the name Smith. But if there aren't any Smiths available, you're going to get the message like you see down below here that we didn't find any Smiths in Oregon. And so it'll offer you the option to review other names in Oregon, or you can just go back and pick a different state. And you could do that up here from the drop down. So we'll just say, we'll just go ahead and do any name. And so here you are again. It's very similar to the other name review. You're going to see the names highlighted. You're going to see what the computer read. And you're going to find this index here to be very accurate, much better than the ones that I've been using prior to this, both at the National Archives and even Family Searches. Because remember, this transcription is coming out of the Ancestry artificial intelligence. So in this case, I would just mark match, and it will take me to the next name down the line. Okay, once those are done, I don't have any way to show you the headers, but it's just, that's fairly simple. There's just the city, county, state, and the enumeration district that needs to be verified. Then we have the family part. I can show you what it'll look like based on a presentation done at Roots Tech. And so they went to California, and they're doing review families. They went to California. They said, let's try a surname named Johnson. They did the search. And by the way, you don't see it very well, but you can make it not just California, but you can also set it for a county and a city. So if I wanted Johnson's in the city of Fresno, I could set it for Fresno County and the city of Fresno, and it would look just there. This would be a way to go find your family to index if you know where they lived. In this case, it's telling you after they did the search for just California and Johnson, there were no Johnsons in California. I find that hard to believe, but there are 72,000 of them over in Nevada. So they're offering you some options. There are some more below there. So one of their options is, would you like to do some Johnsons in Nevada? Or they'll go on and they'll say, well, you know, in your tree, because whoops, they can look at your tree. They're going to say, you want to help in Newton, Texas, because your grandfather, George Smith, lived in Newton, Texas. So do you want to start helping there? Or they'll say, do you want to review Martin families in California because your grandmother, Sarah Martin, was from California? Or you can, would you like to review the details at the top of the pages, or just review some more names if there's still states that need names reviewed? So they'll give you several different options if when you search for something, there isn't anything available. Okay, so let's say you found something you want to do. Maybe you search for Westburg, or you just said, I want to do a page in whatever town this is. So this is what the page of the census looks like. There are 7 steps. The first step is you need to identify the household. Now, for those of us that do censuses in the past, that's pretty obvious for us. Here's where a household begins with all the information about the address and the first person's name. And the first person always has their last name written. The others get little dashes, which are equal to diddle marks. And then when the next household shows up, you'll see all this household information again. So these 3 lines are a household. So you're going to teach the computer that lines 2, 3, and 4 from Marvin Westford down to Shirley Neal are a household. And you'll see that they get highlighted. Once you've established the household, you're going to work across the page and do the rest of the information. So you'll say part 2, and it'll take you over to step 2, which is the housing information. In the way this is set up, there's 2 little boxes in this first one, and they're not big enough to write in hardly. Generally, the top one's the one that's written in. That's the street address. Then the street is found written vertically over here on the side. In this case, it's Highway 87. So the Westfords live at 88 Highway 87. They're the 34th dwelling on this census district, census pages. They don't live in a farm, but they do live on a piece of property that's 3 or more acres. So they live on a big piece of property, but they're not farming it. And so you're verifying just the things in blue. They'll be down here. You change anything that's different from what it should be or what they said it is. So you correct it, you view it again, and then you go, you click part 2 saying part 2 is done. It takes you to part 3, and we do the names again. The one advantage this time, besides getting to double check the names and seeing if they really are correct, is you then will be able to add Westford in there for those slashes, those dashes, so that Maple will now have a last name, because up until now, the only name you would be able to search for by last name would be the head of the household. You'll also be able to verify that the relationships are correct. Once those are done, you say step 3 is done. You go to the next section where all you're doing is checking the race, the sex, and the age. And the age is based on April 1st, 1950. The census was supposedly done on April 1st. The census taker might not have gotten to this family until maybe the 5th, but everything was based on April 1st. In fact, it was the people listed here are the people who resided there. They didn't have to physically be there, but that was their home on April 1st. They also had to be alive on April 1st. So if they had a baby on April 2nd, the baby would not be listed because it was only the people alive on April 1st. If they died in March, the 29th of March, then they wouldn't be listed either because they died before April 1st. So we check just those 3 values, say we're done, and now it goes to the next section where it tells whether they're married or not. There's basically 3. You see widowed here, you see married, and you see never. And there may be another one for divorced. I haven't seen one of those, but I imagine there's probably a 4th one for divorced. And you just check that everything's right down here again and go to the next one. This is part of the work information where it's telling you whether the person works or is unemployed, and then whether they work outside the home. And sometimes things make no sense. If she's unemployed, how can she work outside the home? But that's what it said. And then the next one is looking for work. And then the last one here is currently employed. And so we just check those things down here. If they all agree and they're correct, then and if they're blank, we just leave them blank. Then we go on to the next one, which is the last part, where we find out how many hours the person worked in the last week, what their occupation is. And then their class of work. Excuse me. Meaning he's an owner and she's not paid. She's a homemaker. So she's basically not paid. And the daughter's just a young daughter, so she doesn't have anything there. But those are the main questions. The people that are in these special lines here, there's a whole extra section down at the bottom that you have to do. We're not showing that. Once you've gone across the page for the family, it'll say, way to go. Before that pops up, you can go and review all the way across one last time to make sure you've got the family right. Now, because we searched for Westford as the family, it's saying, okay, you can now go, because you're finished, you can go, there's 238 more Westford families in Texas to review, or there's 145,000 more people in Texas to review, or there's so many Wexfords in Oklahoma you could review, or you just want to go back to start and do a new search. And you get to highlight the one you want and then say continue. If you hadn't picked a name, you would then be allowed, if you wanted to just go to the next family on the page, to the next household, and do the same thing and work your way down through the page. That's basically how it's done. Now, there is an app. Right now, the Apple version of the app is not working the way it really should completely. So please try to use the website. I think right now is probably your best choice. I think the Android version is working okay, but the Apple version doesn't give you all the options, and so it's kind of funky. Essentially, you're not allowed to go straight to the census on the Apple version of Get Involved. What you have to do is you have to go click on a state that you know is supposedly got pages to do on the census. And then if you want to, pick a name, and then when you go to that state, it should show you a census page to work on. But that's all they can offer you at this point right now. And so they're working on getting a new version. Those of us that have iPhones are going to have to reinstall it or get a new update. Okay, how do you get help? You're going to want help, I'm sure. And so I gave you a couple of options. And after this is over with, when I get the recordings done, I will also make a PDF of the slide deck so you can see the pages. I provided you with some images that you can scan so that you can get them easily and not have to remember the big long URL. You can just use the QR code that's down there with your smart device, and it'll take you straight there. There is a group on Facebook called the 1950 U.S. Census Community Project group. You can go there and join, and you can get there just by using the QR code here. In the community, it's not a group, it's just a page called the 1950 U.S. Census. You can go there with this QR code. And I would recommend you sign into Facebook first, you sign into the community first, so that when you use the QR code, it'll take you straight to that group or page without the hassle of saying, well, you can't get there. So that's one place. Both of those are staffed with employees for FamilySearch, missionaries that know what they're talking about. And so you can go to either of those locations and ask questions and get help pretty much right away. You can also go to a written document that we found over in the community. And if you can read the small print, here's the URL for it. But again, here's the QR code. You can just use your phone, get that, and it'll take you straight to a FAQ page with a lot of answers. Hopefully, FamilySearch gets smart and gets this more available for people so that they can find it, because there's a lot of little details. And a couple of things I know that I wanted to bring up was spelling. If they say it's spelled one way, but the paper says different, do it the way it's written on the paper. In other words, if it's misspelled, write it misspelled. I know that goes against everything we want, but that's what we're asked to do. When you're doing the name review, if you see the little dash highlighted, just click match. Don't add a last name in there. Just click match. The name will get added, as you saw, over when we do the household transcribe or reviewing. Then you're going to see anytime it says vacant address or not at home, that artificial intelligence tries to make those into names. Those are not names. So when you see those highlighted with a funny name attached, just click mark transcription error, whoops, and click not a name. And you usually have to do it 2 times because it's written through where the last name and the first name are. And so do that twice. If the program skips a line, don't panic, because I can go in and do a family on a page and then leave and go over to another page and do a family. And if you're going down through that page, when it comes to those people I've done, it skips them. So if it's skipping people, that means other people have been in there and done some of them. And then lastly, just remember, again, you can quit anytime you want. You get credit for everything you've done up to that moment. So it's no big deal. Okay, the other question is, how do you find yourselves? Okay, well, these are my recommendations. We need this every name transcription. If there ever was a census that we needed transcribed, it's this one, because it is not easy to find ourselves. So if you're trying to find yourselves right now without that name, every name transcription done, I would recommend start by going over to the National Archives and use their site. They will allow you to pick a location and a surname, and maybe you can find your people that way. If that doesn't work, I then recommend that you use a what they call a ED finder. Okay, and to do that, you're going to need an address, hopefully, or at least know a location within the city where your family lived, even if you can't remember the exact address. If you can remember the street and between what cross streets, you'll be able to find your home. And if you knew where they lived in 1940 and you don't think they moved by 1950, find them on the 1940 census and look at the address on there, because it's found over on the side of the page, just like the 1950. You can also go to Google and try to find where they lived on Google so that you can see the streets and the cross streets and stuff like that. Now, the key to it, once you know where they lived, is to figure out what enumeration district they were in. And so there's a couple of choices. Steve Morse has been hyped as the best way to go. It's a good way to go. Steve has had what he calls his one-step pages for a long time. He's the guy that does the Ellis Island searching and things like that. One-step search is what his page is all about. Well, he's got it for the enumeration districts. I just found it to be a little difficult because there are so many different options that I was confused which one to pick, and it seemed like I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the right one. I then discovered Ancestry has an enumeration district finder that I think works very well. I'm going to be showing you these things in just a little bit. So once you find, the bottom line is figure out where they lived, figure out what ED it is, enumeration district, and then either go to the National Archives or FamilySearch or Ancestry and pull up that enumeration district of about 30 pages and search through them until you find your family. Like my wife's family's right here. And hopefully you'll be able to find them that way. So what I want to do is I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to jump over into the online, which I hate to do because it always seems to mess up. So I got to find my share screen and go real quick over here to the internet. Hope this is what I want. Nope, that's not what I want. Make sure I've got my page up. Sorry about that. The best laid plans often go awry. Here we are. So if you go to the National Archives page, this is what you'll see. And there's a little link here for this 1950 census. They have done an artificial name transcription. And so, but remember that on the basic pages, only the head of the household has a last name showing. So what I can do is I can pick a state like Arizona, and I can pick a county like Pima, which is where Tucson's located, and I can put in the last name of Givens. And hopefully if their enumeration reading program read it right, we'll be able to find my family. And so they give you a page to start with, but you go down below and you look at what's down in here. On line 17, there's a Givens Carlisle. So Carlisle Givens, that's not my family. On the next one is the name Divens with a D, and it looks like healed or something like that. But this next one is my family. My dad was Joseph J. My mother's Elizabeth. This is my sister Veda and me, Robert. So I click on there. I'm in Enumeration District 10-22. I can enlarge this, maybe not too much. And here's my family. And we were living at 2021 East 1st Street, right there. My neighbors, the Bakers, are there, and the Rubensteins from Russia are there. So I know this is my family. And then I can see all the information about us, that my dad was an assistant plant manager and my mother was a substitute teacher. But she was really raising me at that point because I'm just a 2-year-old. So that's how you would use NARA, the National Archives. If you can't pull the name up, then you got to go to Plan B. And all I needed to know for this one was just the name of the city and the county. Jamie, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that in your case, you can use a first name. And so with yours, if you had searched for Veda, which is an unusual first name,
yeah, I could have done that.
It might have shown up.
But I didn't know if Veda was in the home because she's my half sister. She could have been living with her mother.
Well, I had the same situation with my husband's family because they had the machine transcription of Mayhew had come out kind of crazy, but his mother's name was Cleo, and I was able to find it by searching for Cleo.
Yeah, you can do that if you've got an odd
name. Yeah, it doesn't work if you're looking for Robert.
Yeah, or Joseph or Elizabeth.
Right. It's got to be a fairly unique name to go through.
Yeah. Okay, so let's try a second one. So we got Ancestry here. When you go to Ancestry, actually, I was just on the home page. The easiest way to find it from the home page is just go down to the census records and click 1950. And that takes you there. Now, this is their 1950 census page, and there's a little link here that says 1950 Census District Finder. So I click on it, and it shows you the United States. Now I can go in here and I can say Tucson, Arizona. Tucson, Pima, Arizona. Search for it. It's going to take me there. And it's going to show me all the enumeration districts for Tucson. And I'm going to have to figure out from that map where I live. Now I can enlarge it like that. The other thing I can do is I can go over here to the tools and I can cut down the background noise so that I can see the modern streets. And the enumeration districts just have these little black lines, so that if I know my grandparents lived over on this side of the University of Arizona, I might be able to figure out their enumeration district. It'd be one of these four because they were just to the west. Now I can also put in an address if you know it. I happen to know I lived at 2021 East First Street in Tucson. And then I can do a search for that. And now it's going to tell me exactly where I lived. Whoops. Let's do that search again. I messed it up. Okay. I'll stop using my fingers and I'll just click. And see, here I am on First Street, just south of Speedway and just east of Campbell Avenue. And so that's my house. So I'm in this enumeration district. So all I got to do is click on that and up come the pages for that enumeration district. They always have this cover page, and then here are the various pages. And all I've got to do is scroll through them. And in fact, we're on the first page. We're right here. And it was that easy to find us. Now, if you want to find the enumeration districts over here in FamilySearch, go to the US Census page, Community Project page, and then scroll down past all the indexing stuff. And way down here, you'll see Explore Images. The only trouble is you're going to have to almost know the ED, because you can say, okay, I want to see California. I can just blow it up. Whoops. Get all the California ones to show up here. There's 14,000 enumeration districts. Enlarge California till I get the Fresno area. But see, there's no way to do the streets and stuff like that. I'm going to have to know the enumeration district. And then I could click on those 177 choices and then go through here and pick the right enumeration district and then open it up. But I'd have to use Steve Morse or Ancestry or somebody else to find the enumeration district, because it's not quite as user-friendly. So personally, my personal favorite is Ancestry. I really have found that I can find most what I need over at Ancestry, a lot easier than anywhere else. So that is it. Let me stop the recording.